trigger happy and I give less than a fuck. Love me or hate me, I'ma show enough, rip shit up. It's Mr. Nothing, nice on a mic stand. Mic in the left and the zest in my right hand. I took a puff, had enough now, hold up. If that was Indo, niggas getting rolled up.
What to do, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review Future's 2016 album, EVOL, which basically, EVOL, if you're wondering about that, it basically is love backwards. It means evil, you know, in the sense, kind of a play on words there. And this basically shows up after Future's collection of projects from 2015, which Future had a pretty big 2014 and 2015. I reviewed a couple of his projects around that time, like Purple Rain and then Monster, and then I also reviewed a few months ago his collaboration project with Drake, What a Time to Be Alive. So a lot of these were quite large, and Future was really making a name for himself, especially kicking in the door in terms of the trap that we would go on to hear nowadays, which that trap was kind of in its introductory stages more in early 2016 and throughout 2015 and 2014. So Future was really one of the ones that kind of spearheaded this movement and kind of put it in the door a lot more. And this project is a pretty high regarded example of trap music that would go on to stick so many years later. This is definitely one of the ones I feel like is a foothold if where you were to ask me what are some of the top notch and most recommended trap albums of just like the past 8 years, this is one where I would say does the trick. Now, really, one of the few weaknesses to this project is just the fact that it really only has one single if you don't count the streaming edition. Now, Wicked, which was a single off of his mixtape Purple Rain that I reviewed, is on the streaming edition, but it's not actually on the CD or like the MP3 version of this album. And it's like, it's kind of, in some cases, it's like, why would it? Because you can basically get the song for free. At least the last time I checked. Last time I downloaded that mixtape Purple Rain was in 2020. I don't know if it's I don't know if you can still download it in 2022, late 2022, but it was. It used to be a free song that you could get by Future, but so Future's done an excellent job. It really has like a real kind of sleek and kind of just sophisticated kind of gloss to it that makes a lot of this feel like a really crazy and executed night, not just kind of like going to the club and maybe having like a shot or two, but actually success and getting women and having some good times and spending money and getting drinks that are worth more than $30 or $40 or something like that. Just a lot more. I mean, in Future's case, you can see these situations where he pulls up in like a foreign whip or something like that, that these rappers talk about. But in a lot of ways, the consequence, or it doesn't, I mean, if you're not super balling like some of these rappers, but you do have a nice ride about yourself and a good cache of friends, you're pulling women, that type of stuff, I feel like this can still do the trick as like a notation of that, as far as trying to say that it's not just strictly for super, well-established millionaires. I think in a lot of cases there's plenty to go out and about to, and even despite the fact that this project is 6.5 years old, I would have to say a lot of this still stands to reason as quite sophisticated kind of glossy music for stepping out, cruising around in a vehicle at night, being in a VIP, and just overall in some cases being in a strip club and things like that. It's not quite dance club oriented. I really feel like it's more kind of posted in on the couch in the club or something like that, or kind of with your back to the wall, kind of mingling, that type stuff. But I do feel like in some cases it does have some uppity numbers just to get the women dancing, so it at least does that. But just understand that it's not really so much of a dance project as much as it is like a crunchy, sipping drinks at a bar and flirting kind of club album. And it's in a sleek and sophisticated sense. So it's not like Usher's Yeah kind of club music and like Flow Ride is Low kind of club music. It's a lot more just dark and kind of malaised, I would say. But so the singles, there were 2 of them, but really on the CD edition there was only 1, and it really has like this kind of like belly, kind of hollow in a good way, kind of airy kind of club song, and Low Life is difficult to describe, but it's just, when I said this project was dark, this is kind of this like not, I mean, it's drug induced, but it's not quite as like dark as a lot of the rest of this project winds up being. The Weeknd kind of does a great job on here, even if he recycles his melodies from this song on a later song. I think that was on, yeah, it was on his Starboy project. So he recycles the melodies he has and he puts that on Starboy, but it was good for the time for what it is. Really fits well with Future, and they kind of create pretty much the most polished, glossy song on this whole project. It's really the only song I would see. I mean, I don't think Future really had a problem with getting the socialization and promotion of it out, but in terms of something that you would hear on the radio in everyday setting that's not hardcore rap, this is about as close as it gets. And that's something to note. I forgot to mention that, but this album, as good as it is not commercial. So that's kind of thing. This is really strictly hardcore rap and more where you're gonna basically the people. I mean, not so much in that context, but it really is kind of in more of like a complete weekend mode setting, not something that you're gonna wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and be in the car getting ready to go to your dentist job or your like Home Depot job or something like that, or your Walmart or Target job. It's not very, it's very much not blue collar. But that, it's like, I mean, Future probably could pull that off, but I'm very glad that he made this kind of sophisticated weekend setting. And then Wicked, I kind of listened to this more. I originally was going to say I didn't like this song, but the more I noticed, this really is a pretty kind of terrifying club song. I feel like in a lot of ways, it really feels like you're either tripping out or it just feels like the crunchiness towards it, like things are really getting kind of started, and it has like a lot more this kind of bravado about it than I've seen in most club songs. It felt like something that Jeezy would do with DJ Drama back in the day, very similar to that kind of sample, kind of induced club music that Cameron and Jeezy would do back in the day. But it's interesting to kind of get that. Good song. I mean, I feel like that's a song, I don't know if you still hear it in the club nowadays, but it seems like classic trap music. It seems like this is one of the Future songs that's stuck, and it's probably one of his more definitive songs. But yeah, so that's the basic singles, real quick and to the point. But to talk about some of the hits on here, I feel like songs like Zanny Family, Maybach, and Program all have kind of like that vibe of cruising in a vehicle, either getting ready to be at the club or in the club in like a VIP, something like that. It's kind of more in that sense. The perfect kind of slinky and kind of just overstretching production. It's difficult to describe every single one, but this kind of the way that those feel, they have like a real, yeah, this really feels like you're cruising around or getting ready to go out, or you're already out. And that's kind of the vibe about it. There are some ones like Ain't No Time kind of does that also. I feel like I like the real kind of clean, crisp polishness of In Her Mouth. That one was really nice one. And I think I've about listed every single hit that I liked on here now that I think about it. Yeah, yeah, just all of these really kind of have that kind of vibe about it. I mean, so many, there's really not any dance oriented cuts on here, but oh yeah, Photocopied. I forgot to talk about that. Probably has one of the best beats on here. This is the closest thing I would say to like a dance song. This is definitely for women if you want to get them up and have not so much like kind of brooding and gloating and kind of just smoking at like a couch at VIP, but kind of more getting the women up and getting them shaking their ass. I mean, Future doesn't really have many twerk songs on this project. A lot of this is just strictly just pounds and dap from the homies and that type stuff with some bars and bottles and just Oakley Shades kind of mugging type stuff where you got like your stun of shades on, that type stuff, that sort of stuff going on. So that's kind of, but I'm glad that he threw Photocopied on there because it was desperately needed in terms of not just so much using like the presentation of yourself and the personality. I mean, Future says on this project that he doesn't really fuck with swag, but a lot of it is just pure charisma that kind of goes through some of these things, that and money and probably the vehicle he pushes. But just to kind of say it's just necessary to kind of have some of these moments also. I mean, I feel like the emphasis behind these songs speaks enough volume to where they are cold as fuck, and what he's saying does have it. But in terms of just having like a dance cut, I feel like Photocopied was appreciated. And there's just really not many kind of uppity kind of moments. A lot of this, like I said, is very slinky and off to the side. I feel like you'll notice that. Maybach might be the closest thing to Photocopied, maybe in like a slight secondary example, but a lot of these are very much strip club music, but not so much dance club. But they're good. I definitely feel like I have appreciation for them. So they just have, like I said, a very overcast and kind of like this brooding kind of feel towards them that just kind of has like a lot of vibes, but they work. I mean, they just kind of creep in and have that. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'll list the songs I recommend to you out of 11 or 12. So the songs I recommend to you out of 12 would be Ain't No Time, Low Life, Photocopied, Maybach, Zanny Family, program in her mouth. So that's 7 songs out of 11 in the standard packaging, and then the 8th song on the streaming edition, or if you find a new edition that would have it on there, Wicked is another one. So those are 8 out of 12, which is 2/3 of the project, or 7 out of 11 is pretty good. Also, that's pretty high esteemed. So I'm gonna give this album either edition, me liking 7 out of 11 or 8 out of 12. I'm gonna give it an 8.25 out of 10. I feel like I don't think it's quite 8.5 territory because there's still a a third of this project I didn't like, but it's above average. I would definitely say it's rock solid. I definitely have to say, and it's impressive because the last Future and kind of with Drake album I reviewed, What a Time to Be Alive, I really feel like that was quite lacking and kind of mediocre. But if Drake had been on this project and he had been on this instead of What a Time to Be Alive, I definitely would have felt like it would have been executed that much better. But Future really knocked this out of the park. It was good. This is what he had in the tank, this in the reserve after he got done with What a Time to Be Alive with Drake. And really, it seemed like he improved. I've been wanting to review Dirty Sprite 2 for like the past couple years, but I just haven't been able to get around to it because it's kind of a lengthier project and there's not enough, at least at this stage, I thought that stood out to where I wouldn't just give it a bunk score. But this was to the point and had the right club feel and just a lot of glossy, sophisticated club music that just happened to be really outstanding. So I give a lot of props to Future for doing this. It's definitely, at least at this point, I would say one of his best projects, at least from what the stuff I've heard from him. I like Monster, his mixtape, quite a bit also, but this is definitely up there with that. And the social score, though, I'm going to give a 4 out of 10 because, for one thing, Wicked is not on the CD or MP3 edition of this album. So there's really only one single out of 11 songs. I really feel like Future should have promoted this more. But if you count Low Life and Wicked, I feel like that's at least 2 great club songs, perfect for going out, interchangeable, easily reflective, and able to hear. Women should probably like them. And it's just an overall weekend setting, perfect for just cutting loose and having a good time and eating and snacking and drinking and that type of stuff, and in some cases even watching twerking and that sort of stuff. So it just happens like it has somewhat bravado in the singles, but not nearly enough. So 4 out of 10. And I would have to say, in terms of the Future dropped a album in late April 2022. So he dropped the project recently. That's probably what's going to crest for a while. He's had some #1 singles with Drake, so I know he was on Drake's Certified Lover Boy, which hit #1 with a song, and then he did another song with Drake earlier this year. So I'm not entirely up to date with Future, but I know at least enough that he's done some things recently. So that's kind of the stuff there. But yeah, I would have to say this is a pretty rock solid project. I definitely recommend it in a sense. This is one of the footholds of trap music of the past 8 or 9 years.